All right, Shalom. I want to start off by giving all praise, honor, and glory due to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakwadash. I'd like to give double honors unto the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who I learned this truth from. And I'd like to say peace and salutations unto the hopefully elect. And today is Monday, June 15th, 2026, Missile Monday. And I have this article from Reuters, and it says, Iran says draft U.S. deal includes oil sanctions waiver, nuclear limits, and asset release. So I'm just going to go into this article and bring out a few scriptures. Lord willing, this lesson is edifying and straight to the point. It says a senior Iranian official told Reuters a final draft of the Memorandum of Understanding with the U.S. covered a range of issues from Tehran's nuclear work to reopening the Strait of Hormuz and U.S. waivers on oil sanctions, with a final deal to be discussed in the 60 days following agreement by the two sides. The Iranian official said that the draft memorandum included the following: Strait of Hormuz. Iran immediately reopens the Strait of Hormuz to all commercial vessels, while the U.S. limits its naval blockade on Iranian ports. The lifting of the U.S. blockade will begin immediately after the memorandum is signed and be completed within 30 days. Financial. The U.S. agrees not to oppose any new sanctions on Iran until a final deal is reached. Following a final agreement, all U.S. and UN sanctions on Iran will be lifted according to an agreed timetable. The U.S. will waive oil sanctions on Iran for a specified period, allowing Tehran to sell oil and receive revenue. The U.S. agrees to release $25 billion of Iran's frozen assets, including via direct cash transfers, cooperation among regional countries, and financial credit lines. Washington, in coordination with its regional allies, would prepare a reconstruction and development plan for Iran to be negotiated and agreed with Tehran within 60 days. Nuclear. Tehran agrees that it will neither produce nor acquire nuclear weapons. Slakia. Pending a final agreement, Iran will maintain the current status of its nuclear program, refraining from further uranium enrichment and expansion of nuclear facilities. The United States agrees to allow Iran to dilute its stockpile of highly enriched uranium on Iranian soil under a future comprehensive agreement. Iran's nuclear program, uranium enrichment activities, and mechanisms for holding its stockpile of highly enriched uranium will be negotiated within 60 days of the memorandum and addressed in a final agreement. And we know how things can and will go, that if this does take place, if they come to, some type of agreement, that it's only going to be temporary, because one thing that, the U.S. does is never keep its promises, and in particular, this guy, DJT, when he's in office, we'll see, because again, man, that's his main focus. He said it out of his own mouth. He doesn't care about, Americans struggling financially. The only thing he cares about is, Iran not acquiring a nuclear weapon, which, I personally, believe that they do, or if they don't have them, that they're close to, developing one, at least one, And we have to remember that they are allies with Russia. So there is a huge possibility that if they don't acquire their own weapons, that they'll be supplied these weapons by way of Russia. This is just me speaking as a man, but, speculation as well. But we'll see, how long this, agreement lasts, because even if it is, quote unquote, peaceful for a time, then what? All hell is going to break loose right after that, which is why I'm going to start with the book of First Thessalonians chapter 5 and verse 3. It says, "For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape." And right, man, right now they have these so-called peace talks. They're trying to come to an agreement. Oh, well, we don't want, Iran to build, a nuclear weapon, but, they still need the Strait of Hormuz reopen, so that way, the U.S. economy could continue to, receive its goods, because a lot of, the things that are imported to America comes through that strait, you know, but it's a matter of time, before again, there are no more, agreements, no more peace talks before, this war fully heats up into a hot war, because again, it's still cold, as far as, Russia and America not being at it, because that's when things are going to heat up once America and Russia are directly at odds with each other, when this third world war finally kicks off, and we can see it, you know. So I actually grabbed that in the book of Revelation, chapter 11 and verse 14. And it says, "The second woe is past, and behold, the third woe cometh quickly." And right, we can clearly see that, after the first two world wars, which is that first and second woe, the first war being World War One, the second war being World War Two, and this third woe is World War Three, aka the war to end all wars, man. That's why it has that name for a reason, because that's why these nuclear weapons are on the earth today, because these nuclear weapons are literally going to end, all wars, because there's not going to be any more war after that. There's not going to be any need. This is why these extremely powerful nuclear weapons are on the earth today, which is why, again, Esau Edom's blessing was the sword, man. The Lord allowed this man to develop these technology and this weaponry, ultimately just so Esau Edom on a small scale can take himself out. Because again, those Russians, they're Edomites, man. And as we know or should know, according to, Ezekiel 38, among other chapters, that Russia is going to destroy America. The bear is going to defeat the whore, but even then, Russia, the only people that are going to win World War III is first and foremost our Lord Yahweh Shai, along with the angels and the 144,000, elect, that were, or not just the, 144,000, but, those elect members that, survived, that were beamed up, before that destruction came upon Babylon. Those are the winners, man. Just like it says, they that have gotten the victory, in the scriptures. So that's going to be the true victor of this coming third world war, our Lord Yahweh Shai with the angels and the elect. So let's get Isaiah chapter 50, it's like Isaiah 54 and verse 16. It says, "Behold, I have created the smith that bloweth the coals and the fire, and that bringeth forth an instrument for his work, and I have created the waster to destroy." And right, the smith being these scientists and physicists that are behind creating and developing these nuclear weapons, because what does a blacksmith do? They create, weapons of war, and what are these modern scientists doing? They're doing that very same thing. They're creating weapons of war, but not just any old weapons of war, weapons of mass destruction, because these nukes have the literal capability of destroying the planet Earth. But as it says in the scriptures, that the earth abideth forever, so the entire planet Earth won't be destroyed, but certain lands will, as we know the two confirmed places that are going to get, the two confirmed lands that are going to get hit. The land of Israel, is going to get hit, because our land has to be clean, because of those rats, those imposters that are over there in our land, have to be, exiled, have to be rooted out, forcefully removed, and then America, aka Babylon the Great, America is going to be destroyed. And the difference between the two lands is that Israel is going to be built back up, because again, Jerusalem is going to be the headquarters of the earth, and America is going to be left completely desolate, man. No man is ever going to inhabit this land again, as it says, Ezekiel, not Ezekiel, but Isaiah, the 34th chapter gives a very vivid description of how this land is going to look after that destruction takes place, after that fire finally dies down, man, because this place is going to burn for a long time, and this is what we're patiently waiting for, the destruction of America, aka Babylon the Great. I'm just going to grab a couple more, and that'll be it. Didn't want to make this one too long. Slakia, I went to Psalms. But this is the book of Malachi, chapter 4 and verse 1. It says, "For behold, the day cometh that shall burn as an oven, and all the proud, yea, and all that do wickedly shall be stubble, and the day that cometh shall burn them up, saith the Lord of hosts, that I shall leave them neither root nor branch." And right, man, the day that's coming that shall burn as an oven is referring to World War III, aka the day of the Lord, because that's what's going to take place, man. War is going to take place, just like it says in Isaiah, the 9th chapter and verse 5 is that what? It shall be with burning and fuel of fire. This war is going to be fought with these nuclear weapons, man. Primarily, you're still going to have ground troops that are going to be fighting, but that's, going to be the end all be all once, those nukes get launched, man, because they're going to burn extremely hot, man. They said the sun at its core burns at 15 million degrees Celsius, and that's very hot, right? But these nukes are going to burn at 100 million degrees Celsius, man, and that's extremely hot. That's why it says, in 2 Peter chapter 3, that what, the elements are going to melt with fervent heat. The word fervent, meaning extreme, the extreme heat that is going to melt all the elements, here in America and wherever else, these nukes are going to hit, man, So this is what we're waiting for. We'll see what happens again with this agreement, but we're not going to get our hopes up as of yet, because again, we still have to wait for Revelation, the 13th chapter, verse 16, where it speaks of the mark of the beast, which we can clearly see is getting closer, man, because now there are more talks about people being microchipped, Lord willing, this week I'll do a lesson on that, man, where they're talking about, microchipping prisoners, which that is going to take place, but until that prophecy comes to pass, this war won't come to pass as of yet, So I'm going to end with this. This is the book of Revelation, chapter 9 and verse 15. It says, "And the 4 angels were loosed, which were prepared for an hour and a day and a month and a year, for to slay the third part of men." And right, man, there's a set time when this destruction is going to take place, because when you read in Revelation, the 7th chapter, it speaks of the 4 angels, which these are 4 literal angels holding back the 4 winds. The 4 winds represent the destruction that is about to befall the planet Earth, So there's a set time when this world war is going to take place, man, and those angels are going to be loose to unleash that destruction upon this earth. And just like it says, to slay the third part of men, because this coming destruction is for the third part of men. And who are the third part of men? A specific nation of people, because you have 3 classes of men on the earth. You have the sons of God, which today are the biblical Israelites, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. The tribe of Judah, all the way down to the tribe of Issachar. You have the sons of men, which are the different heathen nations. And then what? You have the sons of the wicked, which is the third part of men, which is who? Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, the nation of Edom, you're the third part of men. And that's who this coming destruction is for you, because you are the wicked that is ruling the earth right now. You are the devil that the Bible speaks of, and that's going to be the end of your kingdom, by being destroyed by way of fire, and 2/3 of the nation of Israel are going to get caught up in the destruction for their wickedness, for refusing to repent and turn back to the Lord. And then, you heathens, you're just collateral damage, man. You're just here to make a little money and die. But that's who that destruction is for Edom primarily. But again, the wicked of our people are going to get caught up in it. And then, certain of you heathens are going to get caught up in it too, that are still on the soils of America anyway. So, Lord willing, this lesson was edifying. I want to give all praise, honor, and glory due to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakwadash. I'd like to give double honors unto the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone who I learned this truth from. And I'd like to say peace and salutations unto the hopefully elect. Till next time I say, Shalom.